Hi, my name is Katie McLaughlin, and I'm the founder of McLaughlin Method. In this video, we're going to talk about the basics of change management. Now, there's a big difference here in change management between the people side or kind of systems and versioning side. And I'm going to let the experts talk about system versioning and governance. I'm here to talk about people because that's really what the McLaughlin Method is all about, is finding the ways to connect with the people in our businesses that need to do the work and are going to drive performance. So change is one of those big, hairy, scary things that we can never get rid of. We're always going to be changing. We're always going to be dealing with problems in the market, needing to respond to competitors, needing to respond to what's happening in the world. I'm recording this in 2020, and there's been a lot of change this year. So it's something we have to get used to. But there's ways to manage change where it doesn't feel so disruptive. And that's really the goal, is that your employees and your teams embrace change, your customers too, and that they become more resilient in the face of change. One of the big mistakes that happens when thinking about change management is, because we all experience so much change, thinking that we don't have to manage it. Now, just because we all face change every day doesn't mean that we like it. We are such creatures of habit and routine, and we really like to be comfortable and be cozy. And when faced with really big changes that you might be facing, like an acquisition or selling your company or bringing on a brand new product or going down a different segment of the market, so after a different type of customer, that's pretty significant change. And especially when it comes to buying or selling a company, that can bring up a lot of disruptive emotions and concerns that your team might have about what this means for their job and their livelihood. And whenever we come under threat, that's when our natural brain processing starts to really kick in, when our amygdala starts to go a little haywire and starts to think about, am I going to fight? Am I going to take flight and leave? Or am I going to freeze? And we really want to avoid all three of those if we can. Now, no matter how good you get at managing change, you're always going to have a little bit of disruption. You should expect a blip of some kind. The important piece is that we want it to be a blip. We don't want it to be a sustained disruption. And some of the ways that it would be sustained would be if employees were to leave, or if you'd get a lot of pushback against the change that you are implementing, and that you'd have to make some hard choices about whether or not to keep those employees. So the first piece of advice I have for you is just to recognize that this is what happens, that your team is going to be very quick, depending on the current state kind of your culture and past changes. They're going to be very quick to jump to, is my job a threat? Is my job at risk? Do I need to worry about whether or not I'm going to be able to pay my bills or still have health insurance? And when any of that comes up, your change initiative is going to suffer. So it's really important that you're aware that that happens. I've seen so many leaders who think that they can just ignore it, that they can just push through, that they can get new people. And sure, there are lots of people out there with skills that you need. But if you're watching this video, that's not the kind of leader you want to be. You want to be a leader that really creates a community, that you also are someone who inspires and engages people, and you probably also aspire to be that leader who people look up to and think about, and really makes an impact on the people that you work with. So knowing is the first part of this. Now, the second part is recognizing that managing change is everyone's responsibility. The ways that you talk about the changes that are coming up, when you introduce it, when you don't introduce it, and who you introduce the changes to, every single one of those actions can be the linchpin towards your change management initiative going in that kind of downhill slide, disruptive place. So it's really important that you start thinking about, how are we going to communicate? How are we going to message? And also, how are we going to advocate for this change? So advocating for this change involves connecting the dots between what your people care about and why you're implementing this change. You might think, oh, well, it's good for the business. That doesn't often matter to your people. Yes, they want to work for a company that is healthy, that there's job security, but they're not going to always make the leap between you as a leader or someone in a leadership position saying, well, this is good for our company. Great. You have to actually spell it out for people. So you have to be able to say, this is good for our company because. Is it good for our company because it will mean greater job security? Is it good for our company because it will mean that you'll have the ability to start really thinking about benefits and being able to give back to your team who's been working so hard to achieve the success that you've already had? Those are the kinds of things that you have to articulate in order to connect with your people. And you have to repeat them. Repetition in this kind of messaging is so key. You also have to mean it. Your team can see right through any false messaging that you might have. They can see through when you are not being authentic. So, as you're learning here, I'm not teaching you about a specific system. I'm not teaching you the 5 bullet points or the 8 steps of, someone's change management theory. There's a lot of change management theories out there. And many of them can be really helpful for perspective and to have a framework to think about. But at its core, the way that you communicate, who you communicate to, and how you do that is the core of change management and the core of being an inspiring, engaging leader. So that's really the big component that I want you to take away when you think about change management is, how can I help be an advocate for change? There's a whole lot more we could talk about in terms of change management. I have loved every initiative that I've been able to help an organization to craft their change management plan and strategies, and I'd love to talk more about this topic. So if you want to learn more, visit McLaughlinmethod.com, and I'll see you next time.